The entire neighborhood froze as 5 luxury SUVs stopped in front of the small rented house. No one could believe what they were seeing. The man they had mocked for weeks wasn't poor at all. He was one of Nigeria's youngest billionaires. But by then, it was already too late for someone who had judged him by his appearance. In a quiet street in Lagos stood a small rented house where 2 young women lived together. To their neighbors and followers online, they looked like they were living a glamorous life filled with luxury and success. Their social media pages were full of stylish photos and carefully chosen backgrounds. But behind the camera, things were very different. The truth was that both women were struggling to make ends meet, and every day was a battle to keep up appearances. Although they shared the same house, Zara and Amara saw the world very differently. Amara loved attention and dreamed of marrying a wealthy man who could give her the luxury lifestyle she wanted. Zara, on the other hand, believed happiness came from honesty, hard work, and good character. Many times she questioned the fake lifestyle they were living, but Amara always convinced her to go along with it. Every morning, Amara spent hours scrolling through social media, admiring expensive cars, designer clothes, and luxury vacations. She often told Zara that one day she would become rich and never have to worry about money again. To Amara, wealth was the answer to every problem. She believed that if she could find the right rich man, her life would be perfect. Zara didn't completely agree with her friend. She understood the importance of money, but she also believed that character mattered more. She often reminded Amara that not every wealthy person was kind, and not every poor person was worthless. Amara usually laughed at those comments and called Zara too soft-hearted for the real world. Across the city, Daniel Williams was facing a problem that money couldn't solve. As one of Nigeria's most successful young businessmen, he had everything most people could only dream about. Yet, whenever he met someone new, he wondered if they truly liked him or simply liked his wealth. After years of disappointment, Daniel became tired of guessing people's intentions. One evening, Daniel came up with an unusual plan. Instead of living as a billionaire, he would temporarily live as an ordinary man. He would move into a modest neighborhood and hide his identity. If someone cared about him without knowing he was rich, then he would know their feelings were genuine. That evening, Daniel gathered his parents in the living room to share a decision that would change his life. Looking at them with determination, he explained that he wanted to leave his luxurious lifestyle and live as an ordinary man. He believed it was the only way to find someone who would love him for who he truly was, not for his wealth. His mother became worried, while his father listened quietly. After a brief silence, his father nodded and said, "If this journey helps you find genuine love, then you have our blessing." Although they were concerned for his safety, they respected his decision and wished him the very best. A few weeks later, Daniel moved into a simple house in a modest neighborhood. Gone were the luxury cars, expensive watches, and designer suits. To everyone around him, he looked like an average young man trying to build a better life, exactly as he had planned. Daniel spent the next few days getting familiar with the neighborhood. Then, one afternoon, he finally decided to introduce himself to the woman he had seen earlier. She was standing outside, checking her phone, completely focused on herself. Her name was Amara. Daniel greeted Amara with a friendly smile and introduced himself as her new neighbor. Amara looked him over for a moment and immediately judged him by his simple appearance. She responded politely, but her tone made it clear she wasn't interested in getting to know him. To her, Daniel looked like an ordinary man with nothing special to offer. Without realizing it, Amara had just dismissed one of the richest men in the country.
Amara sat with her friends, laughing as she showed them glamorous photos on her phone. When she noticed Daniel carrying his boxes into the neighborhood, she smirked and whispered, "Look at our new neighbor. He doesn't even look like he can afford a decent meal." Her friends burst into laughter, while Daniel quietly continued unpacking, pretending not to hear a single word. Little did Amara know, the man she was mocking was hiding a secret that would soon leave the entire neighborhood speechless. Over the following days, Daniel tried to be friendly whenever he saw Amara. However, she always found a way to end the conversation quickly. In her mind, spending time with someone she believed was poor was a waste of time. She had bigger dreams and higher standards. Daniel noticed her attitude and quietly accepted it. Although Amara's behavior disappointed him, Daniel wasn't surprised. He had met many people like her before. Still, he refused to give up on his experiment. Deep down, he believed there had to be someone who valued people for who they were rather than what they owned. A few days later, Daniel was returning home with some groceries when he noticed a young woman struggling to carry several shopping bags. Before he could think twice, he walked over and offered to help. The woman looked up and smiled politely. It was Zara. Unlike Amara, she didn't judge him or act superior. She simply thanked him and accepted the help. As they walked through the neighborhood together, the conversation flowed naturally. They talked about the area, their daily lives, and the challenges of living in Lagos. Daniel was surprised by how easy it was to talk to Zara. She listened carefully, spoke honestly, and never once asked about money or status. Over the next few weeks, Daniel and Zara continued running into each other. Sometimes they talked outside their houses, other times they walked through the neighborhood together. What started as a simple friendship slowly became one of the highlights of Daniel's day. Amara often noticed Zara talking to Daniel and couldn't understand why. She believed Zara was wasting her time on someone who had nothing to offer. More than once, she warned her friend not to get too attached. But Zara simply smiled and reminded Amara that a person's character mattered more than their bank account. The more time Daniel spent with Zara, the more impressed he became. She worked hard, treated people kindly, and never expected anything in return. Whether she was helping neighbors or encouraging friends, Zara always seemed to put others before herself. Daniel couldn't help admiring her. One afternoon, dark clouds gathered over the neighborhood, and heavy rain began to fall. Daniel was hurrying home with groceries when he slipped on the wet road. Several bags fell to the ground, sending their contents rolling through puddles. People nearby noticed, but most simply walked past. The moment Zara saw what happened, she ran through the rain to help him. Together, they picked up the groceries while water poured around them. Daniel couldn't stop smiling. Zara wasn't helping because she expected a reward. She was helping because that was simply the kind of person she was. After gathering everything, Zara opened her umbrella and insisted Daniel stand under it with her. The two walked slowly through the rain, laughing about the accident. For a moment, the busy world around them seemed to disappear. Neither of them realized how important that simple walk would become. That evening, Daniel found himself thinking about Zara more than usual. Her kindness, honesty, and warmth stayed on his mind long after the rain had stopped. What had started as friendship was beginning to feel like something more. Meanwhile, Zara sat by her bedroom window, watching the rain outside. She caught herself smiling as she remembered the afternoon. Daniel was different from most people she knew. He was humble, respectful, and easy to talk to. Without realizing it, she was beginning to look forward to seeing him every day.
As his feelings for Zara grew stronger, Daniel became more careful about protecting his secret. Every morning, he left the neighborhood like an ordinary man, but behind the scenes, he was still running a business empire worth billions. He often wondered how Zara would react if she discovered the truth. For now, he decided it was better to wait. The friendship between Daniel and Zara continued to grow. They shared stories about their dreams, their struggles, and the lessons life had taught them. Daniel noticed that Zara never complained about what she didn't have. Instead, she focused on making the best of what she did have. It was one of the many things he admired about her. As the weeks passed, Amara began noticing how much time Zara spent with Daniel. Although she still considered him unimportant, she couldn't ignore how happy her friend seemed whenever he was around. Part of her found it strange. Another part of her simply didn't understand it. One afternoon, Daniel watched Zara help an elderly neighbor carry heavy bags into her home. She didn't do it for attention or praise. In fact, she smiled and walked away before anyone could even thank her properly. At that moment, Daniel realized that finding someone like Zara was far rarer than finding wealth. Before long, people in the neighborhood started talking about Daniel and Zara. Some believed they were becoming a couple, while others thought they were simply good friends. Every time the rumors reached Zara, she laughed them off. But deep down, she couldn't deny that Daniel had become an important part of her life. The next day, Amara once again criticized Daniel and questioned why Zara spent so much time with him. This time, Zara firmly defended him. She reminded Amara that kindness, honesty, and respect were qualities that couldn't be bought. Amara rolled her eyes, convinced her friend was making a mistake. A few days later, Daniel attended an important business meeting in the city. Dressed in an expensive suit, he looked completely different from the man his neighbors knew. Inside a luxury office tower, executives listened carefully as he made major decisions affecting millions of dollars. Yet, despite all the success, his thoughts kept returning to Zara. After the meeting ended, Daniel looked out at the Lagos skyline from his office window. He couldn't help comparing his two worlds. One was filled with wealth, power, and influence. The other was a simple neighborhood where he had finally met someone genuine. For the first time in years, he knew which world made him happier. A few weeks later, something unexpected happened. One of Daniel's companies faced an urgent situation that required his immediate attention. There was no time to continue pretending. Important people needed to meet him in person, and that meant his secret was about to become impossible to hide. Late that afternoon, the quiet neighborhood was suddenly interrupted by the sound of engines. One after another, luxury black SUVs slowly entered the narrow street. Neighbors stepped outside their homes in confusion. Children stopped playing.
Look how expensive
Within
those vehicles
seconds,
are.
the entire area was watching. The SUVs came to a stop directly in front of Daniel's modest, rented house. Professional security guards stepped out and quickly opened a door. Then, to everyone's shock, they approached Daniel and greeted him with the highest level of respect. The neighborhood fell silent as people struggled to understand what they were seeing. Whispers spread through the crowd. Some people pulled out their phones and searched his name online. Within minutes, the truth became impossible to deny. Daniel Williams wasn't an ordinary neighbor. He was one of the most successful young billionaires in Nigeria. The entire neighborhood was stunned. No one was more shocked than Amara. As she stared at the photos and articles appearing on her phone, she remembered every moment she had ignored Daniel, every cold response, every judgment, every opportunity she had thrown away. For the first time, she felt a deep sense of regret. Unlike everyone else, Zara wasn't thinking about money. She was trying to understand why Daniel had kept such a huge secret. Although she was surprised by the revelation, her feelings toward him didn't change. To her, Daniel was still the same caring and humble person she had come to know. As the sun set over the neighborhood, Daniel and Zara finally spoke alone. Daniel explained why he had hidden his identity and apologized for keeping the truth from her. After listening carefully, Zara smiled and told him she understood. At that moment, Daniel realized he had finally found someone who cared about the man behind the money. Despite everything that had happened, Zara treated Daniel exactly as she always had. She didn't ask for gifts, money, or favors. She still laughed with him, spoke honestly, and treated him like a normal person. The more Daniel watched her, the more certain he became that she was different from everyone else. Amara could not stop thinking about Daniel. Now that she knew who he really was, she began looking for opportunities to talk to him. She smiled more often whenever he was around and suddenly showed interest in things she had ignored before. But Daniel could see the difference between genuine kindness and sudden attention. One evening, Daniel invited Zara to dinner at one of the finest restaurants in Lagos. Zara was nervous because she had never visited a place so luxurious before. Daniel reassured her and reminded her that she didn't need to change who she was. Her simplicity was one of the things he admired most. As they sat together overlooking the city lights, Daniel and Zara talked for hours. They laughed about old memories and shared their hopes for the future. For the first time, Daniel felt completely at peace. He wasn't sitting across from someone impressed by his wealth. He was sitting across from someone who genuinely cared about him. Meanwhile, Amara is watching them through windows glass, how Zara is enjoying life with Billionaire once she refused to talk to. Daniel looked into Zara's eyes and smiled as he handed her a bouquet of fresh roses. It wasn't the flowers that made the moment special. It was everything they had been through together. Before Zara knew he was a billionaire, she had stood by him when everyone else looked down on him. She had offered him kindness when he had nothing to offer in return. As Zara accepted the bouquet with a bright smile, Daniel silently thanked himself for taking the biggest risk of his life. At that moment, he knew he hadn't just found a beautiful woman, he had found someone with a beautiful heart. And for the first time in many years, Daniel believed that true love had finally found him. Amara saw photos of Daniel and Zara together online. Her heart sank as reality finally settled in. The man she had dismissed was now spending his time with her best friend. The regret she felt was becoming harder to ignore. One evening, Daniel asked Zara to meet him in a beautiful garden filled with lights. After a long conversation, he finally admitted how he felt. He told her that from the moment she helped him without expecting anything in return, he knew she was special. Zara smiled as she listened carefully. Zara confessed that she had developed feelings for him too. What started as friendship had become something she could no longer deny. Daniel's wealth had never impressed her. It was his kindness, humility, and honesty that had won her heart. While Daniel and Zara were finding happiness, someone else was watching from a distance. Her name was Vanessa. She was Daniel's former girlfriend, and unlike Zara, she had never truly let him go. When she learned about his new relationship, jealousy began to grow inside her. Vanessa started researching Zara's life. She studied her social media, asked questions, and gathered information. The more she learned, the more frustrated she became. She couldn't understand why Daniel had chosen an ordinary woman over someone like her. Instead of moving on, Vanessa decided to interfere. She convinced herself that Daniel belonged with her and that Zara was standing in the way. Before long, she began creating a plan to break them apart. Unfortunately, she already knew the perfect person to manipulate. After learning about Zara's friendship with Amara, Vanessa arranged a meeting. She knew Amara had once rejected Daniel, and that regret was still fresh in her mind. Vanessa believed those emotions could be turned into something much more dangerous. When Amara arrived at the meeting, she was surprised to find herself sitting across from a wealthy and elegant woman. Vanessa spoke confidently and seemed to know everything about Daniel. At first, Amara was cautious, but as the conversation continued, she became curious.
Vanessa carefully planted doubts in Amara's mind. She suggested that Zara was only interested in Daniel because of his money. She twisted innocent situations into suspicious stories. Slowly, Amara started questioning things she had never questioned before. Over the next few days, Amara found herself looking at Zara differently. Every conversation felt strange. Every explanation felt incomplete. Vanessa's words continued echoing in her mind, creating problems where none had existed before.
For the first time in years, tension began growing between Zara and Amara. Small disagreements turned into arguments. The friendship that had survived so much was suddenly facing one of its biggest challenges, and neither of them realized that someone was secretly pulling the strings behind the scenes. Despite her growing doubts about Zara, something about Vanessa's story didn't feel right. The more Amara thought about it, the more questions she had. Determined to find the truth, she began checking the information Vanessa had given her. What she discovered would change everything. Late one evening, Amara compared Vanessa's claims with messages, photos, and old conversations. To her surprise, several details didn't match. The evidence Vanessa had presented was misleading. For the first time, Amara realized she might have been manipulated. As Amara dug deeper, the full picture became clear. Vanessa had deliberately twisted facts and created misunderstandings to destroy Daniel and Zara's relationship. Anger replaced confusion. Amara couldn't believe she had allowed herself to be used against her best friend. The next morning, Amara sat quietly thinking about everything that had happened. She knew she had hurt Zara and damaged their friendship. Admitting she was wrong wouldn't be easy, but she also knew it was the right thing to do. With tears in her eyes, Amara approached Zara and confessed everything. She explained how Vanessa had manipulated her and admitted that jealousy had clouded her judgment. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence felt heavier than any argument they had ever had. Zara listened carefully before pulling Amara into a hug. She was hurt by what had happened, but she also understood that people make mistakes. Their friendship had been tested, but it was stronger than Vanessa's lies. For the first time in weeks, both women felt relieved. After hearing everything, Daniel finally understood who had been causing the problems. He was disappointed by Vanessa's actions, but grateful that the truth had come out before more damage was done. Together, he, Zara, and Amara decided they would no longer allow anyone to come between them. As Daniel, Zara, and Amara sat together, every lie Vanessa had told began to fall apart. The evidence on the table revealed how she had manipulated situations, created fake stories, and tried to destroy the trust between them. The room fell silent as they realized how close they had come to losing everything. When Vanessa realized her plan had failed, she desperately tried to defend herself. But the evidence against her was overwhelming. The lies she had carefully built began falling apart one after another. For the first time, she had nobody left to blame but herself. Vanessa's reputation suffered as the truth became known. The same manipulation she had used against others now returned to haunt her. She watched helplessly as people distanced themselves from her. Her obsession with winning had ultimately cost her everything. With the drama finally behind them, life slowly returned to normal. Amara focused on improving herself and building a better future. Instead of chasing wealth, she began paying attention to the qualities she had once ignored. It wasn't an easy change, but it was a necessary one. Meanwhile, Daniel and Zara continued growing closer. Their relationship had survived secrets, jealousy, and outside interference. Through it all, they had learned to trust each other. What began as a simple act of kindness had grown into something truly meaningful. Sometimes, Zara would laugh when she remembered how everything started. If she hadn't accepted Daniel's offer to help carry her groceries, their paths might never have crossed. Life had a strange way of rewarding kindness when it was least expected. In the end, Daniel found the genuine love he had been searching for. Amara learned that character is worth more than money, and Zara proved that kindness can open doors that wealth never could. As the sun set over the neighborhood, all three looked toward the future with hope, grateful for the lessons that had changed their lives forever.